If you're a listener in Western Pennsylvania or Eastern Ohio, be sure to stop by Sperdute Farms the next 2 weekends, September 26th and 27th and October 3rd and 4th. They will be having food vendors with takeout available, as well as socially distanced hay rides and the regular Sperdute farm market and fall decorations. Mary Mac Bakehouse will be there with pierogi, baked goods, and baking mixes, along with several other food vendors. So if this repost of episode 24 makes you hungry for some pierogi or haluski, be sure to stop by. Now here's episode 24 with special guest Mary Lou Andruschenko.
Hello and welcome to In the Kitchen with Mary Mac. Today our topic is the Hunky Platter. We made a graphic for a blog called You Jag Off in the Pittsburgh area, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania that is, and the title of it is You Jag Off because that's a common term that's yelled from vehicles in Western Pennsylvania and at sporting events, and when people do something dumb, that's just a thing you say. You jag off. Well, this particular blog points out people doing jag-offy things and points out Pittsburgh things and Western Pennsylvania things. So we made a little thing called a Lunchable, which you may know that a Lunchable is a little prepackaged lunchbox. They're kind of weird little things. And so we put together what we called the Pittsburgh Lunchable. And one of our Pittsburgh Lunchables was a Hunky Platter. And it included the things we thought would go in a Hunky Platter, my producer and I. And graphic designer.
I just did the Photoshop. I had nothing to do with the items picked.
I'm the brains behind the operation. She's just the
brawn.
The brawn. So we put in pierogies, and then we put in another pierogi, and then we put in kielbasa, butter and onions, and sauerkraut, and a tiny little Iron City drink box for the child who would want that with their Pittsburgh Lunchable. And it was a big hit on Facebook. It's got a lot of views and people thought it was really funny. So we got to thinking, geez, I wonder if people ever heard of a Hunky Platter or know what a Hunky Platter is or know what a pierogi is for that matter. Pierogi is like, it's like a basic necessity in Western Pennsylvania. So we thought we would find a professional pierogi maker and a professional Hunky Platter connoisseur and invite them to our podcast to help answer some of these questions. So today we have Mary Lou Andruschenko, who has made thousands upon thousands of pierogies of various styles. You might say she's an expert on Eastern European foods because she brought all of her expert books with her today, so she can answer our questions. Hello, Mary Lou.
Hello, everyone.
Hunky, did you see our Hunky Platter graphic for
Yes, it's marvelous.
Were we pretty accurate on that? Did we do an okay job?
Yes, you did.
So what would you say would constitute a real Hunky Platter?
Well, first of all, you have to have kielbasa.
Okay.
That's a must. And, of course, the pierogi, or varaniki, or however you want to say it.
What's a varaniki?
A varaniki is the Ukrainian word.
Oh, that's Ukrainian for pierogi.
Yes.
Oh, we just learned something. Okay.
Yes.
I'm going to throw that out there in downtown sometime.
Yeah, there you go.
I don't want a pierogi. I want a varaniki.
That's right.
No one will know what you mean.
That's true. I won't get anything. Well, okay. What else would go in there?
Ukrainians will know what you mean.
That's true. If it's a Ukrainian person, then I'll be in good shape.
Yes. And I believe Pierogies Plus are Ukrainians.
Oh, yeah. I think you're right.
I think they're Ukrainian.
Their pierogies are fantastic.
Yes.
Pierogies Plus in McKees Rocks. Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh, that's a really good place to get pierogies. They also have a website and they ship. So in case you are interested in that sort of thing, check them out. Mm-hmm. So that everybody has a pierogi. All of Eastern Europe has a pierogi, and they're all a little bit different. And everybody doesn't make theirs right. I'm sure everyone says, "Oh, they don't make theirs right." Apparently, they don't spell it right, and they don't say it right either. So how many different ways are there to say pierogi?
Well, you can say it pierogi, padohi, varaniki, parahi, tomato. There's so many different spellings. And people get very touchy if you misspell
I've
pierogi.
noticed that.
See, the Polish version of it is spelled Pierog.
Okay.
And the plural is with an I at the end. No IE. No
so it's
Y.
like pierog if
Yes.
you want one, and it's pierogi for
Yes.
more than one in Polish. What about in Ukrainian? What is the Ukrainian?
Varaniki.
Varaniki. And it's Varaniki?
Varaniki.
Okay. Well, what is pierog? Did you ever see the pierogi?
Yes.
Where's that from?
I am not sure which exactly country that comes from, but I'll find out.
She's looking on her phone. She's a wizard on her phone.
Well, it doesn't really say, so I'll have to research that.
Okay.
But I do want to tell you that National Pierogi Day is coming up
Oh, really?
on October the 8th.
October the 8th is National Pierogi Day.
Everybody needs to eat pierogies on
Our
October
timing
the
is
8th.
impeccable. We'll make sure we get our little recipes going before that so people can have some sort of an idea of how to make and serve a pierogi from our fabulous Mary Mac Bakehouse Facebook page.
Yes.
What else would go in our hunky platter?
Well, some people would like to have a stuffed cabbage,
Stuffed cabbage.
also called pigs in a blanket.
Okay. What's in a stuffed cabbage? What do you put in a stuffed cabbage?
I put in my stuffed cabbage, I take a mixture of hamburger and rice,
Okay.
onions, garlic, push it all together, roll it up in a cabbage leaf, and you can either bake them in the oven or you can cook them on top of the stove in a Dutch oven
Okay.
with tomato sauce.
Okay. So we could have had a pigs in a blanket in there. Okay. What about haluski?
Haluski?
Haluski.
Haluski.
Okay. Okay, haluski. So how do you make haluski?
Haluski is merely cabbage, onions, butter, some garlic if you want, salt and pepper. Saute that just like you're making a pierogi filling, pretty much. And then you toss it with egg noodles or homemade noodles if you want.
Who would want to? Well, okay. Somebody might want to make homemade noodles, but when you can buy a bag of noodles, I'm sorry, people, I'm lazy. The truth should be known now early on.
I don't know anyone that makes. Very few people make their homemade noodles.
I tried to make homemade noodles one time. Somebody gave me this foolproof recipe for them, So you're supposed to make the dough and put flour on your table and roll them out onto your table and cut them, and then you let them dry and then you pick them up. Okay. Well, I did all those things, and when I tried to pick them up, they were cemented to my table, and I ended up having to get one of those widget scrapers to get them off. I couldn't get them off my table. Needless to say, we did not have noodles that night. I do not know why they did that.
When I was a kid, we used to make noodles every week, and my mother would put them on a sheet.
Cheating.
On top of the table.
You have to have a sheet between the table and the noodles.
Yes.
Well, that would have been useful. Good to know if I ever decide to
If you
try
ever-
that.
If you ever want to torture yourself and making homemade noodles, there you go.
My one event cured me. I think I spent 2 or 3 hours trying to scrape them off the table.
Well, the bad part was you couldn't eat at the table until the noodles were dry. So a couple days you standing up with your plate.
That's funny. Oh my gosh. Okay, now for the pierogies, how do you make pierogies? What are pierogies, and what would you say? How would you tell someone if they wanted to make pierogies? What advice would you give them?
Okay, first of all, don't skimp on your ingredients. Don't use junky ingredients. Don't use artificial anything. Don't use instant potatoes. Do the real thing. Boil your potatoes.
Okay.
Use real cheese if you want cheese in there. Use real butter. Do not use margarine.
Okay. Yes, this is the real deal.
This is the real deal. Don't use Velveeta cheese, whatever you do.
Okay, good advice.
Terrible. Make sure I like Longhorn Colby cheese
Okay.
for my filling. That's my favorite.
You make excellent pierogies. I'm not even saying good. You make excellent pierogies.
Why, thank you.
Okay, there's lots of good pierogi recipes on the internet because they're pretty popular these days. So if you get online, I'm sure you'll find the basics there because that's what we were talking about, a good pierogi recipe. But Mary Lou says they're all basically the same, and there's a lot of them on the internet. So basically it would be a dough that is the outside of the pierogi and the filling. And when you make your filling, what do you generally put in your filling other than the mashed potatoes?
I use cabbage.
Okay.
I take the cabbage and I cut it up real fine. What I do a little cheater. I buy the coleslaw mix in the bags.
Okay.
And then I just chop it up very fine.
Okay.
Then you saute that in butter
All right.
and onions, and you put a lot of pepper and not a lot of salt, but more pepper than salt.
Okay.
And then you just taste it, and when you get to the good taste, and then you're done.
Okay.
So that's one. We also do a popular one. It is a sharp cheddar with bacon bits, real bacon bits, not the bacos.
Oh yeah, not fake.
Don't
fake
get those fake bacos.
or faking. Don't use faking.
Don't use that.
Okay.
And that's a very popular one. We also do, which I don't do a lot of those, but cottage cheese.
Okay.
That was a big one when I was a kid. Older people love that one.
Okay.
Cottage cheese or farmer's cheese, whatever you want to use. We also used to do sauerkraut,
Okay.
but we decided we like the sweet cabbage better.
Yeah, sweet. I do. I like the cabbage
Yeah.
better too than the
We like-
sauerkraut.
Yeah, so I don't do a lot of sauerkraut anymore.
Then when you make your pierogies, now what? I know some people boil them, and some people
Mm-hmm.
like to brown them in the skillet. And just, do you have to boil them before you brown them in
Yes.
the skillet? Okay.
Yes.
So basically, the way to cook a pierogi is you're going to boil it until it's done,
Yes.
which is not very long, like a couple minutes. And I tried them in a skillet. I melted butter in a skillet and I browned them up in that, and everybody really liked them.
Yes.
I hadn't done them like that before.
Yes.
And then you have to top them with butter and onions. Now, for the butter and onions, I realize it's not real complicated, but how do you do the butter and onions? What do you do? How do you cook it?
Well, I just throw a bunch of butter in a frying pan and a bunch of onions.
You don't brown the onions though, right? They're just clear. You just cook them till they're clear.
Yeah, unless you forget and you go outside and do something and you come back and they're brown.
But you can still use those.
But you can still use those. And
So-
some people also like to chop up bacon and put on top of their pierogies. So that's also an alternative.
That's a new twist. I saw one at a. We were at a restaurant. I don't remember where was it? We were at a restaurant and they had pierogies with. They had sautéed a variety of vegetables in a skillet and served that over the pierogies, and I thought that sounded interesting because I'd never heard of that before. So it was a little something different there. So basically, when you have pierogies, you serve them with butter and onions over them, or butter, onions, and bacon, or something like that.
Also, sour cream.
Oh, sour cream.
Some people like to have sour cream on the side.
Okay.
Use it like a dip.
Okay, and then you said the main ingredient of a hunky platter would be kielbasi.
Oh, yes.
What kind of kielbasi would you recommend for something like that? Is there a particular brand, or is there a national brand, or something
Well,
like that?
I don't really like the national brands because there's a lot of filler
Okay.
in them. A couple of local places here have some really good kielbasi. One of which is Beatty's.
Okay.
One of which is Rulli Brothers in Boardman.
Okay.
Petullo Brothers in Boardman also. They have a really good one.
So you think it'd be better to look for a locally made kielbasi in your area?
Yes.
They're probably, I would imagine kielbasi's made everywhere because it's such a popular thing, and there's so many people from that part of the world everywhere. So I
Right.
imagine you could get it.
There's a national brand that everyone uses. I won't say the name, but if you squeeze it, all you get is gristle. And it's just not good.
Okay, so we want to go to the locally
Yes,
made
yes, that's what I would
kielbasi
do.
of your choice.
Yes.
Okay, now we were talking about the title of this episode is the Hunky Platter. So we were all saying, like, what does hunky mean? We've all heard it. There's actually a person who makes a pierogi form called Hunky Bill. You can get on the internet and order a pierogi maker from Hunky Bill in Canada.
Yes. Makes
So
18 at a time.
if it's for mass production pierogies, you can bang them out.
Yep.
So what is a hunky?
Well, originally a hunky was a slur. People used that to tag Eastern Europeans who came to work in the coal mines. So it really
Okay.
originated in West Virginia and Pennsylvania. But as we always do in hunkies, we took the word back over, and now we refer to ourselves as hunkies. And it's a special thing because not everyone can be a hunky.
If you're a real hot-looking guy,
Yeah, we
and you're
could-
from Eastern Europe, you could be a hunky hunk.
Yes, you could. Yes, you could.
Awesome. Okay, now the last thing on the list for the hunky platter I added, which is brioski. That's when you have heartburn from all that butter. You want to have some brioski, which is a little antacid that's in tiny little rock form. So,
And that funny story regarding that, in the same segue, we had a customer at the concession stand He was a local police officer, and he would come and I'd entice him with the program. Hey, we got pierogies. Okay, give me that and 2 Lipitor.
That's what you need with this sort of food. So where are you from? What is your heritage?
My grandfather was from Ukraine, and my grandmother was from Poland.
Okay.
So I have a little bit of everything. But during the war, they lived everywhere during the war, and they could speak 6 or 7 languages. So we're just kind of a melting pot.
This is World War II.
World War II, sorry.
Okay.
And my neighborhood when I was growing up was all ethnic. Most of the people did not speak English, so we had a little bit of everyone there. So we ate Croatian, we had Yugoslavian, we had Polish, we had Ukrainian, and we actually had a man who smoked his own kielbasa.
Oh.
He had a smokehouse. So that's where we started getting our local.
That's very local in your neighborhood.
Yes.
The guy in your block that's making kielbasa.
Yes, they would trade
Awesome.
things out of the garden for kielbasa.
Oh, awesome. This is really, really interesting. So we're going to try to make some of these foods and get them up on our Mary Mac Bakehouse Facebook page. And our website also is, I can't remember the name of it.
MaryMacPodcast.com.
MaryMacPodcast.com. Oh, there are so many things happening. It's just racing past me. I can't remember. I really can't. I have a terrible memory. But we'll try to get some of those up. And we're at Mary Mac Bakehouse on Facebook, In the Kitchen with Mary Mac on Twitter, and also our website that we just mentioned.
We're at Mary Mac Podcast on Twitter.
At Mary Mac. You know what? I'll just let Anna tell you where everything is, because I'm not really sure where I am right now. So probably it would be better if she did.
Okay.
Where can you find us, Anna?
Well, in addition to Mary Mac's personal Twitter and Facebook page, which is Mary Mac Bakehouse on Facebook and at Mary Mac Mixes on Twitter, we also have a podcast Twitter account, which is at Mary Mac Podcast. The website is marymacpodcast.com. We're on SoundCloud, In the Kitchen with Mary Mac, and I also this past week added us to iTunes and Google Play.
Oh, awesome. Awesome.
So that's where we are at, and probably next week I'll find some more platforms to be on.
Well, that's terrific. Well, if you haven't had a chance to try Eastern European food, we gave you some good examples. I think the haluski is a very easy thing to make, and I think that'd be something. It's really, really good too. It's very simple, but it's really good. And I hope you get a chance to try a pierogi somewhere, or try to make a pierogi, and all these other delicious things. I hope you have a kielbasa smoker right in your neighborhood, but if you don't, look around for somebody local, because, local is best. And thank you for joining us today. Thank you, Mary Lou, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for producing our show, Anna, and trying to remember what everything is and where it goes and what it does.
You're welcome.
And for not yelling at me too much.
Also,
thanks for that.
This is the first episode where we've had a guest on who is not related to us.
Hey! This is awesome. We're expanding in the world.
I feel special.
The first official guest.
I feel special.
Make sure you check out the Jagoff blog and look for our Hunky Platter on there, and enjoy a Hunky Platter with your family. Thanks for listening if you did, and if you didn't, too bad for you.